Ah, shit, I gotta go.
Hello and welcome to another brand new episode of Dingers and Stingers, the podcast that earlier today came up with the phrase Old Macdonald and then couldn't bring it home. I'm Dallas, that's Matt, and that's Drew. And today we are previewing the NFC West division, the last division in our division previews. If you missed any of our previous division previews, go back and take a look at those. They were a ton of fun to do. We go in depth on all the teams, and today we're going to round it out. So it's been a great time doing that leading up to the NFL season. We are 1 week away as of today from the start of the NFL season. So we're super stoked. It's been great to do this and get ourselves excited for the season to come. Lots of interesting storylines to follow. This division has a lot as well. So, we're going to get to it here. But before we do, big news today. I say we're a week out from the start of the NFL season. You might guess that that's Thursday, August 28th. So big news today, Micah Parsons, the all-pro pass rusher from the Dallas Cowboys, was traded today from the Cowboys to the Packers. A couple of first-round picks and some other stuff going the Cowboys' way. And then Green Bay gets, Micah Parsons and also signs him to a new deal. So the good old trade and then sign for the Packers. So I want to get your guys' thoughts real quick on the trade, what it does for Dallas and what it does for Green Bay. If you have any thoughts to give, and let's start with Matt, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, I mean, the 49ers gave up more to trade up and get Trey Lance. Like, at the
Right?
end of the day, we're talking about this is one of, the premier pass rushers we've ever seen. He also, if you need him to, can be more than that. We've seen him as a stand-up inside linebacker early in his career, and he was really good at that. Like, he's a very flexible guy, and I mean, this trade is craziness. Like, there's the Family Guy meme of like, oh, what could be in this box? It could be this. It could be that, or it could be a boat. And it's like the whole thing, like, do you want the boat or do you want the box? And it's like, well, inside this box, it could be a boat. That's what it feels like with the Cowboys right now. It's like, Jerry Jones was like very excited about having all these first round picks, and he's like, and these top end picks, they could turn out to be Pro Bowl players. And it's like the one you traded, like the one that you disrespected, the one that you forced out of your organization, the childhood Cowboys fan who wanted nothing more than to be a lifelong Cowboy and be awesome at it. And it's just like, it's crazy, man. Like, yeah, you could get a good player, but also you could certainly not. And the Packers routinely pick at the end of the first round. So the value of those first round picks is greatly diminished. And this makes the Packers, in my opinion, a better team, flatly. So yeah, I don't expect those picks to be high end picks anyways. So the Cowboys continue to just be a little bit of a shit show. Just a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, you asked what it means for Dallas. I mean, not a ton because he's a Seahawks fan, but for the Cowboys, it's really no. I mean, it's sad. It's anytime a franchise star like that gets traded, it's not a good feeling. I've been through it. We've all been through it to some degree. Um, but yeah, it's a bummer for them. Good for the Packers for jumping on it. I think there were several other teams that would have
Mm-hmm.
benefited from getting in there. At the end of the day, only one team ends up doing it, of course. And yeah, I mean, the NFC North gets a little more complicated with the addition of Micah Parsons up there. So, and I think the Cowboys are just going to. I already thought they were going to be pretty mediocre. They could just be bad now. That's kind of how I feel about them.
Yeah, and I mean, it's going to be great to get that first look at what that might look like for the Cowboys. Because, it could be a situation where they've been preparing through the offseason to not have him, but, they could have also not really done that much and just said, we'll have him, so we'll sub him in wherever, he fits in. But it could be a situation where there's preparation been done for there. They could have not, though. I would believe both. And so we'll get that look in week one, first game of the year, at what the Cowboys could look like against a really good team.
And if you go back to our NFC East preview, I believe I said the X factor with Jerry Jones not being an idiot, and before the season even starts. I mean, so here we are.
Yeah.
August 28th, he couldn't hold up his end of the bargain, so we'll see how
there
it
you
plays
go.
out.
Peace.
So let's move on and go to now the subject of our episode today, which is the NFC West. Division well represented on this show. If you haven't already picked it up, Matt's a Rams fan. I'm a Seahawks fan. So we had a ton of fun preparing for this episode. But I wanted to, we started these division previews with just some general thoughts about these divisions. So what do you guys think of when you think of the NFC West these days? It's meant a lot of things over the course of the last, 15 or 20 years. But, what do you think about these days when you think about the NFC West?
Yeah, I was actually thinking about this when I was going through the rundown. It's interesting because this used to be considered like the premier division, right? Like if you think about, I would argue like the later 2010s, like this was a division that constantly just had 3 to 4 playoff worthy teams in it. And it kind of feels like it's starting to slip a little. Age and, some other things are starting to hit this division. But at the end of the day, it's still a very competitive division, and the team, whatever that wins this division, seems to be a team that people don't want to see in playoffs. At the end of the day, to win the NFC West, you still need to be really great, even if the NFC West is down as a whole. So it should be fun. I do really love this division. As much as I hate the 49ers, I do love them weirdly at the same time, and I love this whole division. So it should be good.
Yeah, when I think of this division, first of all, it's always one of the most competitive. The teams that do poorly in this division are usually not doing poorly for very long. It's not like an extended stay at the bottom typically. Like last season, we'll get into this in a second, the 49ers got last place. That was a year after going to the Super Bowl. So, it can flip like that. But it's funny, I know a decent amount of Rams fans, a decent amount of Seahawks fans, a decent amount of 49ers fans, and it's funny to hear the 3 different perspectives of just bitching about the other two. I mean, we kind of ignore the Cardinals, but bitching about the other 2 teams in this division. They all like bicker and hate each other, and it's just like funny to watch because like I'm not a fan of any of the 3, and so it's just like, hey, like it's usually good football when they play each other. Like it's usually an entertaining game, but like the anger is real there, and so it's pretty fun.
No.
Yeah, unfortunately, it is good football when those 3 teams, play each other, and even when we play the Cardinals too. I'll throw the Cardinals in there. But I think my thoughts on the Cardinals will be clear by the end of this episode. But I'll throw them in there too. Okay, so let's get into it. So before we talk about 2025, let's go back to 2024 and talk about where this division ended up last year. So the team that won the division is the Los Angeles Rams. They were 10-7. They were the only team from this division to make the playoffs, and they lost to the Eagles in the divisional round by just that much. And then in second place were the Seattle Seahawks. They finished also 10-7. We'll talk about that, in a few minutes, what the difference there was. And then next, third place was the Cardinals at 8-9. And then the Niners, as we hinted at, finished last, and they were 6-11. And so let's talk about 2025, and we're going to go, as we always do, in finishing order. So we're going to start with the Rams as we look ahead to 2025. So the 2024 season for the Rams, the expectation going in was that it was going to be the last year of their soft rebuild, and it delivered on those expectations. Nobody rebuilds like the Rams. And in 2024, they showed yet again that they have the ability to draft well, scout the correct free agents, and trust the right players that are already in the building And after a better than expected 2023, they took another step forward on both sides of the ball in 2024. They had an eventful offseason that reinforced the fact that they feel they are the nearest team to Super Bowl in this division. So let's go ahead and go to our offseason recap for the Rams.
Yeah, so the Rams have been making news all offseason, not with like the quantity of players or moves that they made, but just with some of the names that were involved. You know, notably, we were the team that was able to bring in Davante Adams, someone who had offers from many other teams, including the 49ers. But the Rams were willing to give him the bag for one season to say, come and prove that you still got it. We were able to bring in Poona Ford, one of, Dallas's all-time favorite players. But as far as guys we lost, we did get rid of Cooper Kupp, who is kind of a legend in his own right for the Rams, and he went home to Seattle. We traded Jonah Jackson, who, say what you want, was a bit of a failure of a move for our end, but he goes and meets back up with Ben Johnson in Chicago, and we lost our nose tackle Bobby Brown, which is fine because we got Poona Ford. So it's been a very, we lose a guy, we get a guy. And that's kind of how the Rams operated this offseason, and it feels like every time we lost a guy, we said, who's just a little bit more notable? Let's get that guy.
Yeah, so some key additions in spots that are going to be important for sure for the Rams. They also some of those headlines they've been making this offseason have been around Matt Stafford. We've talked about that on this show quite a bit. The mobile back Airstream repair organization came to the rescue, and they're present at practice and things like that. So all of those things have been going on for the Rams as well in the background of all this, and so. Leaning into that sort of theme here, let's go to Drew, and as we start with X factors for the Rams, and let's talk about what you think is going to be the most important point for the Rams going into this year.
Yeah, the Rams, you look up and down their roster, in my opinion, there's no obvious weakness, but then you look behind the roster, and that's where I start to see the weakness a little bit. So I'm going to say that my X factor is just health, because we've talked about Stafford. If he misses time, it's Jimmy Garoppolo. We've seen what Jimmy Garoppolo can do. It's not the worst quarterback play we've ever seen, but it's not inspiring. You look at the depth chart at the skill positions. I don't love a lot of the names I see outside of the starters, and I do really like the starters here, but it's one of those teams where if a couple little things go wrong, things could go really wrong. That's how I feel. So I'm going to say health. I think this could be, if everyone stays on the field, it could and should be one of the very best teams in the NFL. But if it starts to be kind of a snowball effect of guys getting injured, then it could be kind of an ugly season. And we don't know how much longer Matt Stafford plans to play anyways, but yeah, I think the most important thing is keeping those guys on the field and playing when it matters.
Yeah, I mean, bouncing right off that, I think the Rams, would echo this. If Matthew Stafford's healthy and on the field, they feel they have a chance, right? At the end of the day, he's our franchise guy, and he is one of, NFL history's most clutch quarterbacks when it comes to fourth quarters, when it comes to comeback wins, game-winning drives, the whole shebang. And that was a huge part of our Super Bowl run, was him making these insane fourth quarter drives, famously the one to Cooper Kupp to beat Tom Brady in the divisional round. If we didn't have the missed block, he would have done the same thing to the Eagles. We had two guys wide open for touchdowns last year. He puts us in a position to win. But I'm not going to go with the quarterback. I'm going to go with our left tackle, Alaric Jackson. He is, when healthy, an average to above average franchise left tackle, which is better than a lot of teams can say about their left tackle. Without him, our production at that position drops dramatically, and protecting Stafford, like you said, the health of this team, protecting Stafford is like priority number one this year. And so if we go into the beginning of this year with all this drama we've had in the offseason, Stafford is, in his first full week of practice just this week. It's like, it's going to feel pretty sketch walking out a backup or a third string left tackle and being like, go protect our franchise, guy. We believe in you, because we don't. I want AJ Jackson out there. I like him. So he's my X factor, honestly. He had blood clots. Don't know what recovery looks like from blood clots, but I hope it was quick, is all I can say.
That's what Zach Wheeler had.
Yeah,
you want to check out our baseball episode.
Yeah, so he was diagnosed with those a few months ago. He is back at practice, they say, and he was doing individual drills for a long time. But, with stuff like that, it just feels so uncertain. It's not like, oh, he broke his wrist. It's going to be 6 weeks and he'll be back. It's like, it's blood clots. Like, that could mean a lot of different things. There's a lot of variables with it. So, yeah, that's my X factor for the Rams. I really do believe if Stafford's up and healthy, though, we've got a chance against anybody.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair, thing to say. I think one thing I do want to ask about, since we have a Rams faithful, a member of the Ramley here with us, and since we have you here, I want to talk about the cornerbacks, specifically the starting two outside corners. How do you feel about the Rams rolling out these two guys? And you can name them because I'm forgetting who they are specifically. But how do you feel about? But I know there's trepidation around these two guys. If there's a question on the defensive side of the ball, it's the outside corners. So I wanted to get your thoughts on how you feel about the Rams situation at cornerback before we move on.
Yeah, it's. Like you said, it has been arguably the biggest roster question when it comes to the Rams, just because last year our defense and our front seven and our pass rush, they came on so strong at the end of the year, but it was kind of our corners who couldn't hold up their end of the bargain. And that being said, they weren't bad, but they also weren't good. They were kind of serviceable at best, and we really didn't make a lot of moves. What I will say is I am weirdly confident in this year's cornerback group. Not because of any changes, but because we're having the same guys for the second year in a row, which is rare for the Rams, who don't typically value the position. Famously, we do not pay our DBs. And if we do bring in a free agent DB, it's usually one of the value guys. We got Cam Curl on a quite cheap free agency deal. But famously, we let guys who are kind of franchise players at the DB position walk. So rarely we have continuity. This year, we have Darius Williams, who is older, but is scrappy, is solid. We have Kobe Durant. He's one of our better young corners. He will be playing a lot of nickel. 2 years ago, he had a big breakout. Last year, unfortunately, had some injury issues. We have Akello Witherspoon, who will be fighting for the other outside spot. Another reliable veteran, nothing special or splashy about him, but he's reliable. He's willing to get in there and make tackles. The guy that I'm excited about is we claimed a corner who was released by the Commanders last year. His name is Emmanuel Forbes Jr. And he was released in only his second year of his rookie contract, where he was, I believe, the 22nd pick or 23rd pick. A very highly talented, highly desired, highly drafted guy who we were able to essentially get for free because all we did was claim him off waivers. And this is now going to be his second year in our system. He is a guy who is tall and long and fast. Now, the thing that people have against him is he is also incredibly skinny. If you want to go look him up, I'm not going to make fun of him on air here, but he's incredibly thin and lanky. But the good news, and the reason I'm so excited, is he has been showing out in camp and all of preseason, and he's put on almost 20 pounds of muscle. Like, he has been putting in work this offseason, beefing up and getting prepared so that he would be able to be more engaged in the run game and he'd be able to play. You know, it was an issue. Like, we've always needed physical receivers or corners because we were playing against guys like DK Metcalf, Debo Samuel, Marvin Harrison Jr. Like, we've got these tough like receivers in this division. I mean, and same for you guys, right? Like, we have Puka and we had Cooper Kupp. Like, these are guys who are tough to tackle. So you needed corners who could really get in there and make a play. And I think we're finally going to maybe see that with him, which would be huge. Because if he turns out to be anything like his draft slot, we've got a steal with like 3 more years of control. So very excited. We'll see. I still think that they will be the lesser of the strengths on this defense. Our front 7 is still by far our best, I would argue, position group. But we'll see. We'll see. I am very excited about it, though.
All right. And I mean, for those of you wondering, Drew has personal beef with the corners we were just talking about. He doesn't like to hear them. And so he just had to excuse himself briefly for that period of time.
I don't like hearing about skinny guys. Like, it just kind of makes my blood boil.
It makes him angry. You know, and the last thing I'll say on the Rams, for me, to say on the Rams is that speaking from somewhat recent experience, it is also fun as a fan to not only have a team to root for, but to have a team to root against. And Rams fans can root against the Falcons all year long because they want that first round pick to be primo. And so, you know, that's going to add a little bit more fun, another fun element to the season for Rams fans this year, too, is to be able to, you know, very vehemently and actively root against the Falcons and be just kind of as invested in them as they are in the Rams almost.
I have seen some very toxic Rams fans showing their faces on Twitter with the recent injury news to some of the Falcons' starting players. Not a good look, but I kind of get the sentiment. It is going to be a hate-watching kind of season.
Yeah. So, look, to wrap on the Rams, they're banking on a few key players being healthy, being able to stay on the field, to repeat as division champions. And if they can, you know, this Rams team will be as competitive for a Super Bowl as any have in recent memory. You know, the young defense should only get better with a year of building chemistry under their belts. And the sort of pick-your-poison wide receiver duo of Davante Adams and Puka Nacua, they will serve a potentially limited Matt Stafford very well. Also, the Rams are in a period of coaching stability at the coordinator level that is rare for the Sean McVay era. Right, so that's another factor that could contribute positively to year-over-year improvement is continuity at coordinator, the coordinator spots, which, does not happen a lot during the Sean McVay era in Los Angeles. So
this may be the first year Sean McVay has had all 3 coordinators stick.
Yeah, it might be. I tried to look that up, but then I got bored. Because I had to. Yeah,
looking up special teams coordinators from 2018.
I forgot that I had to include special teams, and so I was like, oh, I gotta forget it. Okay, so let's move on to the team that finished second last year, the Seattle Seahawks. The 2024 Seahawks. This was the first year under Mike Macdonald, and they came as close to winning the division as anyone ever has without winning it. They had to go to the 7th tiebreaker against the Rams. Which I learned what that was, active in time last year. It's a crazy thing to have to go that far into the tiebreakers, but it happened for us last year. And it was the difference between making playoffs and not making playoffs because, the NFC was so good last year that, 10 wins wasn't going to do it. And so, mostly a positive first season, though. For the first season after the Pete Carroll era, you couldn't really expect much more. That era came to sort of an unceremonious end, and the Seahawks showed that they, the team they had in the building, the players they had in the building, they were ready to take a small step forward despite a whole new coaching staff, going from, 9 wins in the last Pete Carroll year to 10 wins in the first Mike Macdonald year. So none of that was good enough. Apparently, for John Schneider and Mike Macdonald, because the offseason once again brought seismic change to Seattle Seahawks, whereas in 2024 it was the coaching staff that changed. There were a lot of player turnover for the Seahawks this offseason. And in keeping with tradition, like we did last week when we talked about the Broncos and we had Drew go over the offseason recap, I will continue to talk here, and I'll take on the Seahawks offseason recap. Notable additions, right? Let's start with who we added. So the Seahawks added Sam Darnold at quarterback, friend of the show, for sure. They also added wide receiver Cooper Kupp as well. They also added defensive end DeMarcus Lawrence, which I kind of forgot about until I was doing research here. But it's not insignificant, but it's sort of one of those moves that you do tend to forget about in the midst of all this. But so as far as notable additions, that's who they added. Marquez Valdez-Scantling could have gone in here if he hadn't gotten cut. But he is not on the team anymore. So, we hardly knew you, MVS, but, best of luck. But players that left. Now, you hinted towards seismic change. The reason they signed Sam Darnold is because they traded quarterback Geno Smith to the Raiders. They also traded wide receiver DK Metcalf to the Steelers. They lost Tyler Lockett. I don't know if he was a free agent or if they released him. I think maybe they might have released him. But either way, he's not on the team anymore. A franchise icon. He is at or near the top of all of the franchise receiving records. And so, he's a legend for that. He goes to the Titans. They let go of Draymond Jones, one of the additions that they made a few years back that didn't quite ever really work out the way that they thought it might. They also moved on from offensive tackle George Fant, who was in his second stint with Seattle last year. After his first stint was like when I was in college, which seems like forever ago. And they also moved on from safety Rayshon Jenkins. Now, I mentioned those last few guys because, while they may not make an impact on whatever team they end up on, they were starters at one point for Seattle last year. So, these were guys that were making regular impacts for the Seahawks that are no longer on the team. And so, I talked about it a little bit when it happened because we were doing the show when the Geno Smith and DK Metcalf trades happened and all that. But, I just don't know. I don't know, other than the fact that John Schneider seems to be sort of anti-giving a contract to anyone above the age of 32, considering his track record his entire time in Seattle. I think that, those moves, to me, they don't make Seattle better. Trading out Geno Smith for Sam Darnold doesn't make Seattle better. I don't know that it makes them worse. I'm not saying that. I just don't think it makes them better. And I certainly don't think that trading out DK Metcalf for Cooper Kupp as he is today makes Seattle any better either. And I think that that's a stronger case to be made for that there. So, the moves are not the ones I wanted to really see a ton. Oh, I should mention Noah Fant doesn't play for Seattle anymore. He was the starting tight end last year, but they released him at the beginning of the offseason, so he doesn't play for Seattle anymore either. But so I guess that's my my succinct thoughts here on the moves Seattle made during the offseason. I'm interested to see how it works out. They also added new offensive coordinator Clint Kubiak after firing Ryan Grubb. So the offense will look completely different this year than did last year. I don't know what it's going to look like yet, but I'm interested to see it. I'll be interested to see. There's a lot of bets going on that the Seahawks made on the offensive side of the ball, and I'm excited to see how it turns out. But moving on to get these other guys involved into the discussion here, we'll go on to X Factors, and we'll go back to Drew to start with your X Factor for Seattle.
Well, first of all, I want to say if the Seahawks' goal this offseason was to be more appealing to one Matthew Waters, they nailed it. Getting Sam Darnold and Cooper Kupp is, that's a recipe for...
that's family.
Right, exactly. So good on them for that. But my X Factor, And if we had this show last year, if we had this show 2 years ago, if we had this show any time in the last 10 years or so, I probably would have said this is my X factor. I'm going to go with the offensive line. Now, I will say I like the left side of it. I like Charles Cross. He's their left tackle. He had a good year last year. And I like, because of, Matt's scouting, I know a little bit more about him. I like Gray Zabel at left guard. Appears that's where he'll be slotted in to start. The other three are not guys I'm in love with. And I think we've seen Sam Darnold throughout his career. He had a great year last year, but other than that, it was some struggles. It was some backing up. And at times when pressured, he was panicky. And I think if he doesn't get the protection that he needs, I think he's a much worse quarterback. And that's not a shot at him. I think that's most quarterbacks. But I think it's going to be very important for this team's success to have. I mean, that seems silly to say because it's true for every team. But, this is a team that really needs the offensive line to step up. And I like the way it looks better than I have in past years. But at the same time, Gray Zabel is a rookie. We haven't really truly seen it. And I want to see it. And then I can really fully go all in on the Seahawks. And I have a hot take to share. I know Dallas will disagree with me here, but I want to see less action green. I think it's a disgusting color. I don't think it looks good at all. And it makes them look like highlighters or, I don't know, bad yoga outfits. I really don't know. But that's my take, and I'm sticking to it.
Man, you said it. I'm Action Green Gang for life. I have no retort to this. This is an argument that I can't engage in because I just don't see the other side as legitimate. I feel I feel their rivalry uniforms, while we're on the subject, should have been more in the vein of Action Green. But that's just me. But I can see that the uncultured swine of the world might see Action Green as a negative, but I would never count myself among those. But I do agree with your point about the offensive line, though, and we'll talk more about the offense here as Matt goes into his X factor for the Seahawks.
Yeah, my X factor is definitely just going to be with Clint Kubiak coming in and bringing a new system. I think my X factor is going to be, JSN. It's going to be Jackson Smith-Njigba. Because through his career so far, he's had a few years. Last year was really good. He has been leaps and bounds better playing out of the slot. And that's just going by metrics. That's going by the stats, whatever. I mean, I'm sure he's more than capable of playing receiver anywhere. But in the current schemes he's played under, he has been a slot receiver, essentially. And then they trade DK Metcalf, a guy who's an exclusively outside X-profiling receiver, and they bring in Cooper Kupp, someone who famously was drafted for his slot ability and is good from the slot. And now I don't know too much about, where Clint Kubiak, or is it Clint?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know where Clint wants to go with this roster setup, but unless they want to feature two slot receivers, in their offense a lot, I don't know what the plan is because behind them, and correct me if I'm wrong with your guys' roster and depth at the receiver position, it's Jake Bobo and Torrey Horton.
Yeah.
I believe those are the two guys behind them. And don't get me wrong, I'm a Jake Bobo fan. I'm a Torrey Horton fan. I think those guys have skills that will make them viable NFL receivers. And yet, unless you're running two slot receivers, you start to look at it and it's like, okay, so one of those guys has to play unless you're going to run two tight end sets. but then you cut Noah Fant, and so you only really have rookie Elijah Arroyo. So, okay, do we run 2 running backs? And you could, Kenneth Walker and Sharp, but it just causes this interesting, like, the way the roster was constructed on offense almost restricts the personnel groupings that make sense on the field. So I'm curious to see how he solves that, because Cooper Kupp has slowed down, but he is still one of my favorite players. I think that there is still value to be had from him. He knows how to get first downs. He is a chain mover. And Jackson Smith-Njigba is a weapon from the slot. Can Kubiak turn him into an outside receiver? Remains to be seen. But yeah, I think it's a lot of redundancy in player talent, because Horton can play outside, but he's kind of at least in college, he was a bit of a one-trick pony. Jake Bobo also can play in a number of places, but he's just essentially a young, unathletic version of Cooper Kupp. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how they get used. But I think the X Factor's got to be JSN, right? Like, last year, he was your guys' weapon. Like, when you guys needed a big play, it seemed like he constantly was the one making it. And you guys should have a good run game. That much I think we can count on. Your running backs are solid. I'm really interested to see kind of how this offense looks. Like, you guys just have so many slot receivers.
Yeah. Before we end and wrap up Seattle, I'll just say I am not bullish on this offense. If it hasn't come across already, it's because I am not confident in Jackson Smith-Njigba's ability to be a 1. I've never seen it, so I'm not confident in it going into the year. Now, it could be that he can do more than what he's done in Seattle so far. I haven't seen it yet, so I don't want to believe in it. I will never be optimistic about the offensive line until I see like 5 or 6 games of them being good at the same time. Now, I'll say this season, what we have on this season, what this season has on last season, is that the offensive line starters are decided going into week 1, which was not the case last year. But the 5 are, decided on, and they're going to roll with them for a little while at least. And so, you think about that, and that's a good thing. So that makes me trepidatious about the run game. It makes me worried about Sam Darnold, like how he's going to be protected. I don't have confidence in that. And so, I just don't think, I don't know what this offense will be capable of. But something that I do know for sure is that the defense, it was a top 5 unit after the second half of the year last year. They didn't finish a top 5 unit because of the terrible start they had. But it was a top 5 unit from the second half on. And so they have the opportunity to be a top 5 unit all year long. I think their most optimistic case, you could make a case that this is one of those teams that could be in the running for the best defense in the league, because of the jump that Mike Macdonald defenses typically take in year 2, and also just the caliber of player they have. Now, the Broncos and other teams like that, they're going to be hard teams to top from a defensive standpoint. But I think this is one of those teams that every year there's like a cluster of teams in the preseason where it's like any one of these teams you can make a case for being the number 1 defense at the end of the year. And I think Seahawks have that on their side again this year. So I think that will be important, because if the Seahawks team is going to improve, it's going to be on the defense to do it, to help them make the jump. Because like I say about this offense, new coordinator, new quarterback, new weapons, some weapons doing different jobs, things like that. While they find their legs, the defense is going to have to be really, really good at stopping people from scoring. And so, if those legs for the offense are there to be found, they're going to need the defense to step up. So, if that happens, that'll be great. Seahawks, like I said, made some big bets this offseason. So, to me, that makes them equally as prime for regression as they are for improvement. It could be that all of the bets like turn out to be good, and the Seahawks can contend this year again, or it could turn out that the majority of them are not good, and the team doesn't do well. And so, I could see both situations happening, and we'll see how it shakes out. But that'll wrap for the Seahawks here. We spent a lot of time up top on this division preview because that's where our fanship lies. But let's move on now to the other two teams in this division and go with third place team last year, the Cardinals. As we know, the Cardinals, they came in third last year, and going into 2024, they were kind of one of those teams that no one could make heads or tails of, right? It was kind of a thing of like they clearly weren't as bad as their 2023 record would suggest they are, but no one really knew what the actual ceiling was for the Cardinals to go into 2024. But they doubled their win total in 2024 behind a fully healthy season from Kyler Murray. They also saw the emergence of Trey McBride as one of the top tight ends in the league. And many feel that there are still a significant number of wins left to grab for this team in 2025, if only a couple key players would take a step forward. So another thing that is going to play a factor is if they could make some improvements on the margins of their team, right? So let's talk about their offseason and see what moves they made to make any of those improvements there.
Yeah, so they brought in backup quarterback Jacoby Brissett. I really do think this is an underrated move. It's just such a great insurance because Kyler Murray usually doesn't play a full season. So having a guy who can come in and kind of steady the ship in those in-between weeks is really, really great. They brought in a lot of defensive line help. Last year, that was kind of their Achilles heel, was every team that wanted to could just hand the ball off and win. And this year, they brought in defensive end Josh Sweat. They brought in, while old, still effective, D-tackle Calais Campbell. They brought in Dalvin Tomlinson. They even in the draft, they addressed the defensive front. So they really invested into that front seven on the defense. And then as far as the departures go, not really anyone too noteworthy. Their departures were mostly, again, like you said, around the fringe, around the edges of the roster. So it's going to be a team that, at least on the surface, should have continuity and should be able to perform better this year.
All right. So talk about those additions. Talk about, some of those insurance moves there at quarterback and on the defensive line. Let's talk about now what we think the X factors for the Cardinals will be. And let's start with Drew. What's going to be most important for old Arizona to succeed this year?
Yeah. First of all, shout out Hugo, my little pug. He's been distracting me this whole episode because my wife can't watch him right now. She is out. But anyways,
mononucleosis.
I think I think that the X factor for me is going to be Marvin Harrison Jr. He was so highly touted coming out of the draft. Everyone thought he was just going to instantly be a star in this league. And while he had a solid rookie season, it just was not to the level that we were hoping for. We thought that Kyler Murray, Marvin Harrison Jr. connection was going to be one of the best in football. It really just wasn't. And so I think if this team wants to be successful, which is going to be an uphill battle in this division that's highly competitive, Marvin Harrison Jr. needs to be a wide receiver one. He needs to be what we all kind of thought he would be coming out of the draft last year. It's not unheard of for a guy to have an underwhelming rookie year and then go on to have a great career. So in no means am I counting him out, but I just want to see more. The 1 year we saw Kyler Murray really take off and take the Cardinals to the playoffs, he had some big wide receiver years. He had DeAndre Hopkins on that team. He had an old AJ Green on that team, and he had a kind of a breakout Christian Kirk on that team. And so I like Trey McBride. I think he's a good tight end, but I think Marvin Harrison Jr. needs to take another step forward if they want any chance of competing.
Yeah, and I mean, bouncing right off that, it is a bit of a soft rule, but I really believe, like we've talked about, this team has continuity. This team has talent. This team is invested. I love the two paw. This team has seemingly invested in a lot of the right places. They have talented young tackles. They have stacked this defensive front. They went out and got maybe the steal of the draft in Will Johnson in the second, who I viewed as a top 6 player in the draft. And it's they've been able to stack all this. The one piece that continues to fail them every time they even sniff the playoffs seems to be Kyler Murray. So I unfortunately am going to have to make him my X factor, because at the end of the day, we talked about this in the offseason. I said this is his year. If it's not this year, it's not going to be his year. He needs to show up. He needs to be a franchise quarterback. He needs to be a quarterback that can win. Because if he doesn't do it this year, I just think that he's not going to find that success in the NFL. And I really believe this is his last chance. He does have Trey McBride. He does have Marvin Harrison Jr. He does have 2 great running backs. He now is going to, presumably, based off of their offseason moves, have a defense. He has arguably his best offensive line he's ever played behind. And so I think ultimately at the end of the day, it's, is he a franchise quarterback, or is he just an athlete who is playing quarterback? Because I think, especially if we see one of those situations where he goes down for a week or two and Jacoby Brissett comes in and actually leads this offense to looking better or smoother, I think that'll be a really big tell on the future for Kyler Murray. There's a world where I think this may be his last year as the Cardinals franchise guy.
He'll go play outfield for the A's.
Yeah,
and
why
you
not?
know what? He could be great.
Yeah, who knows? Baseball could be missing out on an all-time talent here. But, yeah, talking about the Cardinals just a little bit longer, I've made my thoughts on Kyler Murray clear on this show back when we did our football propaganda You're Not Falling For episode. Go back and check that out. So I won't belabor the point, but I just really don't think he has it in him. I think we've seen the best he can be. And if he can do the best he can be, the Cardinals can go to playoffs. But I do not think that in the last few years he's shown that he can be, any sort of consistency at that position for them. So whether that means, injury-wise or just quality of play-wise. So that's why I'm not really high on the Cardinals in general. The defense is also a little bit, of a mid-unit, when it comes to that. So I'm also not super bullish on them either. But when it comes to the Cardinals, it's just one of those things where I watched them play Seattle, and I don't really over the last couple of years, I haven't really ever thought Seattle was that good of a team. And so watching the Cardinals play poorly against Seattle has always made me be like, well, the Cardinals I write them off all the time. But they do have good pieces. And so could it be the year they all come together? Yes, perhaps. But we'll see. So, wrapping on the Cardinals, they can once again hang your favorite analyst's favorite dark horse candidate banner. They can hang that for the offseason. They're definitely that. But it's going to take Kyler Murray finally living up to the ceiling some argue he's capable of, and Marvin Harrison Jr. finding his stride in this offense that has a lot of talented players to get the rock to. That's the other thing, is they have all these talented pieces, these great pieces, these good players. And that just means that there's a lot of people who need to get opportunities to make an impact. And so, all of that coming together is what it's going to take for the Cardinals to deliver on the expectations that some have for them this season. So moving on from the Cardinals, let's go to San Francisco and finish the NFC West preview with the 49ers. So last year's last place team, they entered 2024 with big plans. They came close to winning the Super Bowl the season prior, and those plans were dashed as several players missed significant time throughout the season, and others seriously underperformed. So it all led to a very strange last place finish for a team that could very well flip that position completely on the other side in 2025. For the offseason concerns, depth at important positions was key. going into the offseason. So let's see how the 49ers address that concern and talk about their offseason recap and who they added and maybe who they lost to.
Yeah, so the 49ers were able to bring in their guy. They got Mac Jones. This was, rumored to be Kyle Shanahan's pick the whole time, and he was forced to take Trey Lance. Who's to say if that's right or wrong? They brought him in anyway, so we'll see. They traded for Brian Robinson. Famously, they have like every dude in the league who's been shot now. They have Demarcus Robinson. He's suspended. They traded for Sky Moore, the Chiefs' disappointment, and then Luke Farrell, who, sure. As far as the departures go, however, they got rid of Debo. Love to see him out of the division. They got rid of Travarius Ward. They lost Dre Greenlaw. They lost Talanoa Hufanga. And they lost Javon Hargrave. So, it to me, their team, granted they're banking on some of the guys who were not healthy last year coming back. But as far as the roster goes, they feel thinner than they were last year. So it will be interesting to see. They are relying on some injury-prone dudes staying healthy this year.
Yeah, sure thing. I think, though, it is sort of interesting to look at from the perspective of trying to get depth here. What positions got hurt last year that really threw this team off? Christian McCaffrey. Okay, get a decent backup running back. We also, we need Brandon Ayuk insurance. Okay, so Demarcus Robinson, Sky Moore, bring them in. Hopefully together they can combine and maybe be some good Brandon Ayuk insurance in case he's truly cooked. And then George Kittle also missed time last year, so get a halfway decent tight end in the room so that when the idea, I think here, based on their offseason moves, was to get better replacement players, right? And I think by that metric, they succeeded. And so, let's keep this sort of theme rolling here as we talk about health and injury status and go into our X factors for the Niners. And we'll start again with Drew.
Yeah, I'm going to be a little lame here, and I'm going to reuse what I said for the Rams, and I'm going to say it's health. I know Matt and you, Dallas, both pointed this out already, but I do think it was their big downfall last year is they couldn't stay healthy. They have a roster that a lot of teams would be jealous of, and yet they finished with, 5 wins last year, 6 wins? Not very many wins. And I think that it kind of set them up for success this year because, you finish 4th place, you get that 4th place schedule. They are still not that different of a team than they were 2 years ago. Now, they did lose a decent number of guys, but, I like some of the pieces they have on offense. We talked about Brock Purdy back when he signed his contract extension. Love him or hate him, I think he's a capable quarterback. Christian McCaffrey, when he's on, is arguably the best running back in football. They have pieces here, and I still like Kyle Shanahan, despite the fact that he's known now for playoff choke jobs. I still think he's one of the brighter coaches in football, particularly when it comes to regular season play. So I think there is reasons to be optimistic about this 49ers team. They just need to stay on the field. That's the most important thing.
Yeah. Originally I had health too. And I think at the end of the day, that really is the big thing for them. This team is one of the older teams in the NFL just by roster age. They also have the highest amount of dead cap on their books going into this year, where they are in the lead with $98 million of dead cap space being used on players no longer playing for them. So they don't have a ton of margin for error when it comes to filling out this roster. They need people who are going to be effective and cheap. And the way that comes is usually free agency, getting the guys who are kind of, at the end of free agency, i.e. Demarcus Robinson, or through the draft. But really, I think the X factor for this year, and one that kind of gets joked about but isn't actually being talked about too much, is they have a last place schedule. like at the end of the day, this may be the best, most talented last place team I've ever seen. They really did just have bad luck with every key position. Like George Kittle was maybe the only dude who was healthy for them. They had injury issues with Brock Purdy, with Christian McCaffrey, with Trent Williams. Even Bosa missed some time. I believe Fred Warner even missed a couple games. Like they were struggling last year on the health, and so when they are coming into this year and they get to play every division's last place team when it comes to like how our schedules work out, that scares me a bit. But that also is, that's going to mean something because in theory they should have a talent advantage over most of their schedule. So really, it's just going to come down to, are they healthy and can they execute when they play down like these?
And it's important to mention, on top of the fourth place schedule for the Niners, it's also the fact that this division has the AFC South also this year. Everyone also plays all the teams in the AFC South, and so this could be a problem for other teams in this division, the Niners having a fourth place schedule, and also like all the other teams playing the AFC South.
What I'll say is we could actually mess up the NFC playoffs. I see a world where teams who are more deserving might get left out of the playoffs because the NFC West has good records.
Yeah, it could be. And let's talk about how many playoff teams that we see from this division, perhaps when we get to our standings predictions. But to wrap on the Niners here, if addressing depth at key positions, like I said, was the goal during the offseason, I think they cleared it. They upgraded their backups at the offensive positions where they had players either underperform or miss time. With the hope that if they experience any percentage of the bad injury luck from last year, that they're better insured in 2025. So the defense will bear watching. Several players who are at the core of their defense departed in free agency. And Kyle Shanahan, here he goes. He's going to embark on the latest chapter of his, Sisyphean NFL story. He's at the bottom of the hill once again with the stone, and the hill has never looked steeper for the league's most tortured head coach. So, hopefully for his sake and for the Niners' sake, things can turn around and they can not finish last this year. So let's talk about where we see this division ending for 2025, and let's talk about our division standings predictions. So we'll start with Drew. Let us know how you see this division shaking out top to bottom.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. The way I have it finishing, I have the Rams finishing in first. My concerns with their injuries, I think is outweighed by the fact that I believe this is the best team in this division. I believe they will go all out to try to win in what's very likely one of Matt Stafford's last years, if not his very last year. I think if somebody does get hurt, they will work hard to, find a solution to that. So I'm picking the Rams to go all out and get the division here. I'm picking the Niners to go second. I think they are a more talented team than a last place team. And like we've talked about in depth, they have a last place schedule. I think that plays to their advantage. And I think they'll be much improved this year. I have the Seahawks finishing third. And I think they'll still be a competitive team. My concern with them is, as much as I root for this guy and as much as I like him, my concern is Sam Darnold. We've seen one good NFL season from him. And even then, when the lights were brightest and against the Los Angeles Rams in particular, he did not look great. And, so we'll see. He now has expectation upon him, which he has not had since he was a rookie, maybe. And then that leaves the Cardinals in last. I think the Cardinals will be a fine team. I just don't think they're good enough to surpass any of these other teams.
Yeah, I mean, all that makes sense. For mine, I mean, we both have the Rams up top. Both in I'm a Rams fan. I have optimism and expect the best of them. I also do think we are just in a position to win this division until Stafford's pretty much either cooked or gone. So until he proves that he's not that dude or is too injured to play, I'm going to bank on him and I'll bet on him. I have the Seahawks finishing second again. I do believe Sam is talented, and I think people kind of forget, like, a lot of people thought of, the him and Geno exchange as being this, like, one-to-one thing. Sam's 5 years younger than him, 4 years. Like, Sam is still considered a young quarterback. He is only, I believe, 27 or 28. He's a year younger than me, so depending on when his birthday was, I'm not going to do the thing in my head right now. But he's still a young quarterback. And I believe, like, last year he did crumble in the biggest moment, and he also had MVP votes and led a team to a second seed with 14 wins. And so, I still do believe that he has talent there. And if he's able to, cook up any of that magic from last year, the Seahawks should be a good team. 14 wins, maybe not, but second place in the division, I think that's right in their grasp. Well, what, you think 14 wins, Dallas?
No, I think that would be crazy.
Call
Yeah,
it. Call it here.
crazy.
Call it here.
14 wins would be, no way.
Yeah.
Not in this division. No one,
That's what I'm
no
saying.
one in this
Like,
division is going to have 14 wins because they have to play each other twice. Like, it's not possible, I don't think.
Yeah, I fully agree with you.
If you include
Third
playoffs, all
place-
you need is a 10-win season, and then you win the entire playoffs. And you get to 14.
You're 14.
Oh, there you go. Well, I mean, the Seahawks didn't make it with 10 wins. Beside the point, third place, I have the 49ers. They could be flipped, the Rams and the 49ers, for me, and it really comes down to the health. I just trust us to stay healthy more than the Niners. I think their players are more injury prone and have a longer history of missed time, where I do believe the Rams, for the most part, outside of a few key guys missing at times, have been mostly a healthy team. But if the Rams were to get injured and the 49ers were healthy, I could absolutely see this flip-flopping. But obviously that leaves the Cardinals last. I truly don't believe in Kyler Murray. I think he's a fine quarterback. I don't believe that he is a, winner, if you want to say that. And this team may be better this year than they were last year, but I don't think that brings them up in this tough division. And at the end of the day, I think that they're going to end, middle of the pack in the NFL. Maybe they might have 7, 8, 9 wins, but they're not going to really sniff the division here. So that's what I got.
Yeah, I didn't make division standings for this show, but I will throw out maybe a bold prediction for this division since it's my home division. I think that for one of these teams, it's going to be absolute worst case scenario, and they're going to tank. Like, they're not tank in the sense that they'll purposefully lose games,
not on purpose.
But I just mean that for one of these, something's going to happen to one of these teams, and they're going to be really at the bottom. Like, whether that's Seattle, none of the bets paying out, and the offense stinks, and the defense can't be good enough to keep them in games, things like that, or whether it's the Rams or the Niners, like, just again, injury, being a problem for those guys. Whether it be that for those two teams, whether it be the Cardinals, like Kyler Murray finally takes the last dump of his career. I think something's going to happen to one of these teams, and there's the last place team is going to be the really last place team. And so kind of like I guess kind of similar to what happened to the Niners last year, except I think maybe even less wins is possible for like the worst case scenario for all of the teams here. I think it's perfectly possible. So we'll see how that shakes out. I think, but I don't know if I can say who, but for one of these teams, it's all going to go down and they're going to finish bad. So there you have it. that's our NFC West preview, and that puts a cap on all of our division previews. So, like I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, if you didn't see any of our previous ones, check them all out. They're all in our archive over there if you go to our channel, and they were really fun to do. So, look, next week, a week from today, is the start of the NFL season, and we are going live for at least the first half of Cowboys versus Eagles. We're going to be able to react to the game and all the action that's happening. And also, we're going to do our playoff predictions and Super Bowl predictions during that time as well. So you're going to want to tune in to see, we're going to take our division standings predictions and use that information to make a playoff field for each of us. And then we're both going to pick, both of you are going to pick a Super Bowl winner off of that as well. So it's going to be a hoot and a holler, to celebrate week 1 of the NFL starting. We're super stoked about it. But until then, make sure you subscribe here on YouTube. Thank you for watching all of our division previews and tuning in with us. And follow us on Instagram at Dingers and Stingers, watch this space for our live episode next week. It's going to be super fun. We hope to see a lot of you there. Until then, we'll see you next time. Thanks. Goodbye.
Bye.